Now let's test TraCI4Matlab. TraCI4Matlab includes 3 test examples for verifying its correct installation and functioning. The first example is TraCI test. This test script is located at program files, Eclipse, Sumo, tools, contributed, TraCI4Matlab example. This example, it returns Sumo and the TraCI version. Let's run this example. It shows loading configuration done, starting server on port 8813, loading net file, loading additional files, loading done. You can just ignore the warnings. In MATLAB, it returns Sumo version, Sumo 1.60, and TraCI version 20. That is the Sumo and TraCI installed in my computer. Now let's move on to the TraCI test 2. This advanced example aims to test the majority of the TraCI4Matlab functions. This scenario utilizes the TraCI4 traffic lights tutorial, which consists of an intersection which priority vehicles going from the north to the south are guaranteed the right of way through an actuated traffic light. That is this tutorial, TraCI4 traffic lights. This tutorial shows how to use traffic control interface. In short, TraCI, on a simple example, TraCI gives the possibility to control a running road traffic simulation. TraCI uses a TCP-based client-server architecture, where Sumo acts as server and the external script, the controller, is a client. So in this tutorial, the controller is a Python script which receives information about the simulation state from the server and sends instruction back. This example plays on a simple signalized section with 4 approaches. We only have traffic on the horizontal axis and important vehicles on the vertical axis from north to south. On approaching the north, we have an induction loop to recognize entering vehicle. With no vehicles enter from the north, it will give green on the horizontal axis all the time. But when a vehicle enters the induction loop, we switch the signal immediately to red on the horizontal axis. If you directly run this file, it may give you some errors. The errors come from the fact that in the data folder, the root file is not included. Therefore, we need to first run the TraCI4Matlab traffic light scenario using TraCI Python client so that the root file is generated. That means we need to run the runner Python file first to generate the root file. Now let's open this file. We can open the folder. Then here you will see it generates the root file. then this part of the code is not included in the MATLAB. So therefore, we have to execute the Python file to generate the root file. Now let's run the Python file. Then let's run the simulation. Now it's done. Then the root file will be generated. Then we can run the TraCI test 2 in MATLAB. Now let's move on to the last example. So this example is located at the TraCI4Matlab home examples. This scenario shows a pedestrian crossing with an actuated traffic light system that simulates pedestrians pushing a button for requesting the right of way using the same algorithm of TraCI pedestrian crossing tutorial. That is this tutorial. This tutorial shows how to use traffic control interface, in short TraCI, to build a pedestrian actuated crossing. This scenario consists of a single road which is crossed by a footpath. The crossing is controlled by a traffic light and should switch when triggered by the pedestrian will push button. To model the pushing behavior, to assume a pedestrian which arrives at a red light, activate the button if it is not yet activated to prevent undue interference with vehicle traffic. There are minimum green duration of 15 seconds for the vehicular green phase. Now let's run this example. At the end of the example, it plots this figure. It shows the number of pedestrians at the sidewalks and the traffic phase for the vehicles.